Today's signing is for all the young Nunavut across our territory dreaming of a better future.
Tonight, a long-awaited deal for Nunavut that will change the lives of the people who live there.
We have an opportunity to stop turning the blind cheek and finding solutions to the problem.
A new multi-million-dollar shelter for the houseless in Edmonton. And Hockey Night in Cree is coming back to APTN. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Nunavut signed a long-awaited deal with the federal government today that promises to change the lives of Nunavut. The Nunavut Lands and Resources Devolution Agreement will transfer ownership of the land, resources, and waters around the territory from Canada to the people who live there. A number of dignitaries were on hand for the signing, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He says the deal is part of the evolution of the territory.
Leaders, negotiators, officials of many stripes have all worked hard for years with the same goal, for Nunavut to have increased control for decisions on their land, waters, and resources. And our government will provide funding to be there with you throughout the 3-year implementation period to come and beyond. Formal name for this process is devolution, but in many ways it's more of an evolution in our partnership as the federal government and the territory, and also an evolution in the progress towards self-determination for Inuit living in Nunavut.
Nunavut Premier PJ Aguirre says Nunavut's most precious resource is their people, especially their youth, and that's why this deal is important.
Today's signing is for all the young Nunavut across our territory dreaming of a better future, imagining what others thought was impossible, and working hard to achieve what hasn't yet been tried. Our people have made many sacrifices in the name of Canadian sovereignty. In the past, too many decisions about us were made without us. With the signing of this very historic agreement, we could now bring decision-making home right here. Upinna.
Well, as we mentioned, the signing today is a result of 10 years of negotiations. Our Trevor Wright explains some of the background.
Today, the Nunavut government, Government of Canada, and Nunavut Tungavik Incorporated signed a final devolution agreement for Nunavut. Devolution devolves or delegates authorities normally held by the federal government down to the territorial government. While it doesn't quite make Nunavut a province, it gives the territory greater autonomy to conduct its own affairs like a province. Changes include a 50% share in resource revenues for the territory, as well as a new framework with NTI on human resources development to increase Inuit participation in government. A yet undetermined number of federal employees will be given the option to work with the Nunavut government in the same or similar devolved positions. This will include much of the federal staff housing that come with these positions, which will be given to the Nunavut government. Jobs that will remain with the federal government include entities such as the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, Coast Guard, as well as Crown corporations such as Canada Post and CBC. Compared to the NWT government, who only had 9 months for devolution in 2014, the Nunavut government will have a 3-year implementation or transition period starting April 1st, 2024. The federal government will also be transferring over $82 million in one-time funding for transitional activities over the 3-year period. Trevor Wright, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
And Trevor joins us now from Iqaluit for more on today's announcement. Trevor, busy day. Thanks for taking the time here for us. Can you tell us how everything went today?
By all appearances, everything went well. All the documents were signed. Lots of people were clapping. Community celebrations right after the signing. Cultural performances. At the very last performance, a bunch of MLAs and the Premier himself went out jigging. So, like, it was a very festive occasion, it felt like.
Yeah, saw the Prime Minister up there as well. So what do the people of Nunavut think about this all?
The average person, I don't really have a read on, but all the people involved in devolution seem to be optimistic about how things are going. Like, as to how devolution will actually turn out, I think we will have to wait until we see the results.
Well, like you mentioned, celebrations have happened, papers have been signed. Well, what happens next?
A lot of legislation. The Nunavut legislature during its next sitting is going to have to adapt to this new framework, and the implementation period itself, it's 3 years and it begins on April 1st. So in comparison, the government of the Northwest Territories back in 2014, when they devolved, they only had 9 months. So a lot more breathing room in this agreement this time around.
Well, Trevor, looking forward to your continued reporting on this. Appreciate you taking a few minutes for us here.
Thank you.
Well, we'd like to hear what you have to say about the devolution agreement or anything else you see here. Here's how you can continue the conversation. If you have a story you want to share, you can send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. You can find us online on your favorite social media sites as well, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. You can follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. To other news now, and today was day 4 of the inquest into the mass stabbings on the James Smith Cree Nation and in the nearby village of Weldon in early September of 2022. We heard from a retired Melfort RCMP staff sergeant who was with the detachment at the time of the attacks, and the ex-common law wife of the killer also took the stand. Our Rachel May is at the inquest.
Retired Staff Sergeant with Melfort RCMP Darren Simons took the stand first today. At the time of the attack, Simons had only been with the Melfort detachment for around 2 months. On the day of the attacks, he recalls getting to the triage center at the band office on James Smith and seeing multiple people with stab wounds to the head, throat, and shoulders area. He spoke highly of all members of the RCMP who worked on this case. He also extends his thanks to paramedics and conservation officers. This afternoon, we heard from Vanessa Burns. Burns is the ex-common law partner of Miles Sanderson, the sole killer in the attacks. Vanessa recalls that 2 months into their relationship, Sanderson became abusive. She said the main issue in their relationship was his cheating. Vanessa and Sanderson were on the James Smith Cree Nation August 17th, 2022. Vanessa was driving and messaging people on behalf of Miles to arrange the sale of cocaine. 2 days before the September 4th massacre, Burns says she and Miles were in a vehicle on James Smith Cree Nation. He was abusive, so she got out. He floored the vehicle towards her but slammed on the brakes before he could strike her. Testimony is continuing. Tomorrow we're expected to hear from RCMP Communications. Rachel May, APTN National News, Melfort, Saskatchewan.
Thanks, Rachel. Our Truth in Politics panel is back for our first panel of 2024. That and more coming up after the break. Welcome back. The Alberta government has announced a new $13 million shelter for houseless people who have been displaced by the dismantling of encampments. APTN's Chris Stewart has the details.
There is a new place for people needing shelter. In Edmonton, police tore down their encampments. According to a plan released by the province, the shelter, now open, will be at the Care Centre, part of the nonprofit Hope Mission in downtown Edmonton. The province says 1,771 beds are available across the city's shelters. Alberta Social Services Minister Jason Nixon is calling the facility a navigation centre where lockers will be available, pets will be welcomed, and cultural supports and detox help will be available. The centre will bring people to shelters across the city where there is capacity.
I want to be very clear that this Support Navigation Centre is not designed to replace the considerable support and emergency shelter system that is already in place in Edmonton, but to bring all that support system together to provide wraparound services to individuals coming out of encampments.
Excited about this?
Edmonton Police Chief Dale McPhee said his department's goal will be to dismantle every encampment and tent. But everyone displaced gets a heated bus ride with their possessions to the new navigation centre.
Encampments are not safe, and stop. In no way is it compassionate or responsible to allow people, vulnerable community members who are already in the throes of mental health and addictions issues to continue to live in these circumstances.
He says keeping encampments alive has caused too many deaths and injuries.
Tent fire shop, bicycle chop shops, sudden deaths, weapon caches, open-air drugs, gang activity, people burning to death alive, people freezing to death. In our front lines, not only police, but emergency services respond to these every day. And quite frankly, enough is enough.
Confederacy of Treaty 6 First Nations Grand Chief Cody Thomas says that now, amid some of the coldest temperatures on record for Alberta, is the time to act.
Our members are dying. Individuals downtown are dying. Like, what are we doing as humanity to allow them to kill themselves in front of us? And we have an opportunity to stop turning the blind cheek and finding solutions to the problem.
The minister says he expects the Navigation Centre to be a multi-year effort. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
For more on this now, our Truth in Politics panel has assembled for the first time this year. Carrie Benjo is the editor of Eagle Feather News and based in Regina, and Negon Sinclair is a columnist with the Winnipeg Free Press. Carrie, Negon, Happy New Year to you. Thanks for being with us again.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Carrie, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts about the police clearing the encampments out in Edmonton?
I think, well, earlier this fall, the same thing happened in Regina when the police came in heavy-handed and cleared out the encampment that was on City Hall. And the weeks passing, anytime an encampment was attempted, the police came in and tore it down. And I think there's this real sort of criminalization of those who are most in need. And I think that there needs to be a different approach, especially now with this cold snap. It's not just criminalization of those most in need. Now they're endangering their lives because this is their only shelter that they have, and taking away is beyond cruel.
Yeah, Negon, as Carrie mentions, this isn't just an Edmonton issue. We've seen it here in Winnipeg. We've seen it on the East Coast, the West Coast. Is there a better way here?
Police never solve homelessness. And in the city of Winnipeg, when the pandemic started and they closed bathrooms, that meant people's lives were at risk. They moved into bus shelters, and the solution to the city wasn't to improve services. The solution was to remove the windows in those bus shelters, literally, as Carrie said, endangering lives. Right now, there is a kind of shift in culture, particularly on the prairies when dealing with homelessness. I think largely in Manitoba because of the shift in government. And that's involved opening up more Indigenous-run, community-based warming houses In Nunavut, for example, I wrote a column just recently about this. They've expanded now to 200 beds from 150, and they're doing that because these are solutions that are actually actively working.
Kerry, the Alberta Public Safety Minister has said that action had to be taken to close down the camps, as you were mentioning the criminalization of the homeless here. He said these encampments have turned into gang-run drug camps that enable drug dealing, human trafficking, rape, crime, and violence. That's his quote. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that he's coming from an approach where he hasn't been in these camps. He doesn't know the people. He hasn't been there. From what I know of those that are the most in need, the houseless, they tend to be the most kind people, the most generous, because they want others to survive because they know how hard it is. And for someone to come in from their perspective and say, oh, this is, a gang hub, and there's rape and there's crime and there's all these things happening. Where are the statistics? Where's the proof? Where are the victims? Where is he getting this information from? And I think it's very dangerous to perpetuate this narrative, because it's further marginalizing this group that is the most in need right now.
Nigan, your thoughts on what the minister had to say and what can be done to help the most vulnerable, not just during a cold snap here on the prairies, but long term?
I've been working in the downtown core of Winnipeg off and on with people who are in crisis, people in marginalized positions for 30 years. And I can tell you this, that the reason that people live in encampments are because A, the shelters are not safe. They're often the place where the most amount of violence takes place. B, there is love, there is kindness, there is generosity. People care for one another in encampments because those are the services that left them behind. And then C, people live in encampments because it is about control over their own lives. It's not about being dictated to and told how to live your life, what to wear, carrying a weapon. Carrying a weapon is a reality of being on the streets, particularly if you're a woman, to be safe to do so. And oftentimes within a shelter, you're put into a dangerous situation where that's taken away from you. And the reality is that there is violence that does happen on the streets, but it is not in any way the kind of violence that minister is talking about, who clearly has no idea what he's talking about, has no experience. And the fact is that what we need is less police. We need more mental health services. We need more community-based solutions. And most importantly, it needs to be led by the people themselves, who are trying to, in many ways, live those teachings that we have always lived, which is to care for each other, to be kind, and most importantly, to stay committed to each other. I think, in fact, when you look at people who are in encampments, you're seeing the continuation of many of our traditions, which are ways that people have followed for thousands of years.
Nigan and Kerry, will have to leave it there. An issue that certainly won't be going away. Good to have you back.
Yeah, me much.
And I'll say we'll have more on this on next Tuesday's episode of Face to Face when we sit down with Edmonton City Councillor Aaron Paquette. Still to come tonight, Hockey Night in Cree is set to return. We'll tell you when and what teams are playing after the break. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. And it's a double rainbow. I'm beginning to think these things aren't that rare. Over Eskasoni First Nation, Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, Francis Chazon took this photo this past December and wanted to share it. Thanks for that, Francis. If you have a great picture you'd like to share, send it to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, -2 for Halifax, 2 below with snow in St. John's. -14 in Kuujjuaq, flurries and 9 below for Nain. -13 in Montreal, 17 below in Val-d'Or. -13 for Sault Ste. Marie, 17 below in North Bay. -15 for Thunder Bay, -19 in Sioux Lookout. 19 below in God's Lake, -14 for Norway House and the Paw. 14 below with snow in Winnipeg, -15 in Dauphin. 20 below in Regina, -22 in Saskatoon. -21 for Meadow Lake, La Ronge, and Buffalo Narrows. Over in northern Alberta, -25 in high level, snow and 22 below for Fort Chip. -16 in Edmonton, snow and 9 below for Lethbridge. +5 in Vancouver and Victoria. -13 with flurries in Prince George, snow and 11 below in Smithers. -18 with snow in Old Crow, 22 below in Whitehorse. -24 for Yellowknife, -13 with snow in Norman Wells. 27 below in Sax Harbor, snow and -13 in Politac. -17 for Chesterfield, 16 below in Arviette. -27 in Resolute, -16 in Iqaluit. A new Yukon ungulate working group is reaching out to the public to better understand the territory's needs and concerns on ungulate management. Ungulates are hoofed animals like elk, moose, or caribou. The Yukon Fish and Wildlife Management Board created the group after hearing concerns with ungulates such as predation, overhunting, and loss of habitat. The new 6-member working group will receive technical support from the territory's Environment Department. The group is currently exploring the development of new ungulate management framework that will provide communities with conservation and sustainable use supports. Michelle Dawson-Beatty chairs the management board.
Like we've mentioned before, this is just really about empowering community-based fish and wildlife management, well, ungulate management. And, you know, it's just a collaborative way to bring everybody together because we all care about these animals.
It's back. APTN and Sportsnet have teamed up once again to bring you Hockey Night in Canada in Cree.
Good evening and wow to Hockey Night in Canada in Cree on APTN.
Hockey Night in Canada in Cree has been a big hit in previous seasons, and it helps APTN meet its mandate to revitalize Indigenous languages. Play-by-play announcer Clarence Iron will be back with line mates Earl Wood, John Chabot, and Jason Chamakis right here in the APTN studio. The first show hits the airwaves January 27th when the Toronto Maple Leafs visit the current league-leading Winnipeg Jets at 7 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to tune in. No better game to kick off the season. My struggling Leafs are going to take it to the Jets. Can't afford tickets to that game, so excited to watch in Plains Cree. Okay, over to our Ottawa studio now, where Fraser Needham is standing by with a look at tonight's all-new episode of Nation to Nation.
Coming up after the news on Nation to Nation, today is a big day in Iqaluit, Nunavut, with a signing ceremony that continues the devolution process of powers from Ottawa to the territory. We'll talk to former Senator Dennis Patterson, who was there. Doug Cuthand of Little Pine First Nation is one of the most respected journalists in Saskatchewan and Canada. We'll speak to him about what he sees on the reconciliation front for 2024. And Beverly Illick and Benjamin Illick both work at Ottawa-based Isaret Inuit Arts, provides grassroots Indigenous language training, and is being forced to deal with significant funding cuts. All this ahead.
Thanks, Fraser. You can watch Fraser and Nation to Nation in less than 2 minutes right here. One time I did go to a Leafs Jets game. It cost about $500 and I sat up in the rafters. So again, looking forward to watching it in Plains Cree. That is all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Thursday. You can always find much more over on our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward, Marcy Miigowicz. Thanks for being with us. Have a great night.